Hello, greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. And today we are going to be talking about the state of policing in America. Now, over the course of the month of May, there were a number of high-profile police violence cases and a number of unarmed people once again being killed by the police. Invariably, this leads to circular coverage in the mainstream media of experts coming on to debate whether or not it's wrong to kill other people. In fact, these all too frequent interviews with experts and politicians who make lots of claims and promises while nothing ever changes is why you focus on these few events, which leads people invariably to have the very defensible excuse of, these are just a few bad apples, which is why, once again, I am coming to you with our reoccurring weekly segment. What the hell's going on with the police state? This is when I show you a shit ton of other news stories about the police doing bad police crap that you probably missed because the media will only talk about a few of these stories at a time, so we can possibly think that they are isolated incidences. So if you don't believe me, let me run through this week's litany of stories, which, by the way, isn't nearly all of the stories that I found that occurred in the last week. I can just only fit so many pounds of shit into a small bag. So, decide for yourself. Is policing fucked, or is it once again for another week just a few bad apples? Here we go. Shooting death of Deon K. justified, but cops acted recklessly and without a plan. What? Last summer, a D.C. police officer shot and killed 18-year-old Deon K. in Southeast D.C. A new audit of that shooting says it was justified, but also says the officers involved acted recklessly and without a plan. The report, released Tuesday, also says officers, quote, squandered any opportunity to de-escalate the situation, and that the officer who fired the shot that killed Kay, Officer Alexander Alvarez, unnecessarily placed himself in the situation. Now, I may not be the sharpest knife in the silverware drawer, but I'm pretty sure that that says a cop created a fucked up situation, exacerbated the situation, then chose the most violent method possible to end the situation, and that it's still legal. Why? Because state institutions and the police will always work together to ensure that they defend each other before they defend me, you, or anybody else. Next! Sheriff's Office investigating former Groveland police officer's alleged communications with a minor. The department became aware of allegations against the officer on May 18th regarding his communication with a juvenile, and Police Chief Sean Ramsey immediately started an internal investigation for possible misconduct. When the officer was notified of the investigation, he submitted his resignation with the Groveland Police Department, according to the city. So yes, another example of the police telling you that they are going to investigate themselves. So all y'all, don't worry about it. You are still totally safe. The police are still totally here to protect you. And while they're protecting you, they're also going to investigate themselves to make sure that they're helping you as much as possible. Do y'all feel helped? Do you feel helped yet? I have like 10 more tabs, so let me track through these, and then we'll get back to the do you feel helped thing, okay? Next! Cleveland police officer who sent racist texts about black Ohio State players suspended 10 days for failing to investigate crimes. Detective John Kranick failed to properly investigate 15 cases from January to June of 2019. The whopping 10-day suspension without pay marks the latest controversy for Kranick, who is the center of a 2018 investigation after internal investigators caught him sending racist text messages and when he shot and killed a 15-year-old black teen in 2005. Gee, imagine that. A cop literally shot a black kid to death, then spent years sending racist messages about black people. Then it was discovered that he improperly investigated crimes. This seems like a pattern of behavior. And when you're in a system for the better part of 20 years doing a job, frequently displaying this kind of behavior, and the system allows it, well then, that's not a bad apple. That is a systemic issue. But I digress. Let me continue. The letter and a statement from the city do not say what cases Kranick, an officer in the city's predominantly black 4th district, failed to investigate, nor the races of the victims in the cases involved. 10-day suspension for not investigating crimes in his predominantly black district. And a pattern of behavior, which includes killing black teenagers dating back almost 20 years. Don't worry, everybody. It's a bad apple. It's not systemic. Next, 88-year-old veteran says police officer yanked him through the window of a car outside his house. The Korean War veteran said he has a bad leg and is most comfortable sitting in his car with the leg elevated. He said he was in his car, parked in front of his house, when the officer walked up. I said, "Hey, I live here. Is it illegal for me to sit here?" And he said, that really infuriated him. He put his chest out and said, "Don't you forget you're on my turf now." The cop then accused him of drinking, even though he said he doesn't drink, told him to get out of the car. After he explained to the cop about his leg that doesn't work so good and why he was sitting there with it elevated, the officer gave no fucks, insisted he get out, and then began trying to yank his 88-year-old ass out through a car window. When that didn't work, called over another cop, and the two of them eventually yanked the 88-year-old man out of his car and threw him down onto the ground. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. Next, former police officer facing federal charges for stealing drugs from evidence room. But without the police, who would protect us from property crimes? Next, ex-police officer charged with stealing and selling ammo. But without the police, who would keep all the guns off the streets? Next, Dallas police officer arrested on domestic violence charge. But without the police, who would protect the most vulnerable amongst us? Next, a Washington County corrections officer shot and killed a woman, then himself, in his apartment. But without the police, who would keep the criminals from killing people? Next, DNA leads police to charge Laurel man with murder in 40-year-old cold case. That case was the kidnapping, rape, and murder of a young woman. They had the DNA, they sat on it for 40 years because it's so darn time-consuming and expensive to test, and oh, by the way, we have to keep buying all these MRAPs with mounted 50 cals on them for, our small police force, just in case the Antifas come. I wonder, without the police, who would solve 40-year-old crimes of kidnapping and murdering women in an expeditious manner? I have no idea. Next, Oklahoma City family questions police pursuit that killed pregnant mom. Hey, everybody. Pregnant mom means there was a fetus involved. So all y'all pro-lifers out there with that conservative point of view, yeah, stop lurking back there in the woodwork because this one is for you, right? There's nothing more heinous than taking the life of the unborn. But the state doesn't give a fuck. Don't believe me? Let's check it out. The aggressive police pursuit that ended with the death of Shells and the third son she was 5 months pregnant with was the 125th high-speed chase in Oklahoma City this year alone. It started at a south side site and wound its way through the northeast side of the city. The accident raises questions about why the police were pursuing a stolen work truck which was equipped with GPS at high rates of speed at that time of day near schools and a highly trafficked area, especially since they had real-time data on the truck's location. Why? Because turning on your fucking lights and driving at 100 miles an hour through poor and predominantly black neighborhoods is just extra bonus when you do this for a living. A lawyer representing Schultz's family also raised the question of whether the same pursuit would have been conducted through Oklahoma City's affluent areas, where the white people live. Whoa. They would have never had a police chase like that in Heritage Falls. They never would have had a police chase like that from Nichols Hills. Hey, and if you're wondering about what those neighborhoods have in common, well, most of the people who live there, they're very white. Next, Missouri lawmaker accused of sex with teen while serving as a police officer. In Columbia, Missouri, the State Highway Patrol is reviewing claims that a state lawmaker had sex with a drunk 19-year-old while serving as a police officer in 2015. A spokesman on Thursday said the local prosecutor asked the patrol to investigate 42-year-old Republican rep Chad Perkins. Because, of course, he's named Chad. Next, cops strip search a black teen in the street in broad daylight. Why? Because police in the police state do not consider black people to be humans or worthy of the same dignity and respect as their fellow blue co-workers. Clarence Green, 23, and his 16-year-old brother were driving down the street on New Year's Day in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, last year when police detained and then strip-searched the two young black men in broad daylight. When one of the officers pulled down Green's underwear, exposing and touching his genitals, the teen told him that he couldn't do that. The cop responded, "I can." You know why? Because I'm the police, and I could do whatever I want. So shut your mouth while I grab your teenage genitals out here in the middle of the street. But don't worry, it's bad apples. This totally isn't systemic or somehow a part of the greater police culture. Don't worry. Here, I'll just blow by this one, okay? And we'll keep going. Next! New questions raised after body camera video shows Springfield police officer testing child's ashes. Body camera video footage shows the father of a murdered child becoming emotional and frustrated after being stopped by Springfield police over a year ago. 6 police officers are named in a lawsuit stemming from the traffic stop. The father, Dartavius Barnes, claims the officer searched his car without consent and tested the ashes of his dead daughter. Quote, "Bro, no, that's my daughter." Barnes can be heard yelling in the body camera video after being shown the item officers found the ashes in. "What are you doing, bro? That's my daughter." The officer can be heard saying they believed it was Molly, or X, crushed up, and that it had already tested positive for meth. Oh yes, that's right. Police reports always say that they find something in a car that tests positive for some kind of drug, and that is their excuse for further searches, further seizures, and further imprisonment of people who haven't broken the law. Up next, cops claim that a black man killed himself during a traffic stop. Yes, I know I too frequently kill myself when the police pull me over. Seems totally reasonable, right? In an initial release on December 15th of 2019, the agency said that Bumpus's car had hit a power pole during a traffic stop, that EMS arrived, and that he was taken to a nearby emergency room where he was pronounced dead. 3 days later, another release said preliminary autopsy results showed that Bumpus died as the result of a close-range gunshot wound consistent with suicide. Go ahead, everybody. Take as much time as you need with this one. Go ahead. Audio of Portland activist arrest shows cops allegedly making up charges. Quote, "We'll give him a probable cause in the description," says one person in the video. In this story, a local activist was at a protest. The police arrested him, of course, took his phone along with everybody else's, and threw it in an evidence bag while they were all sitting in a Gen Pop cell being held. Of course, the phone was still live streaming while it was in his bag, so the entire conversation of all the cops was shared. And in it, they claim they had no idea what they were going to hold or arrest people for, and they discuss what charges they will make up that will make it easy for them to hold them. Next, and last but not least, Houston cops molested female deputies during undercover stings First one to be penetrated in both her vagina and anus by known rapist. That's a fucking headline. That's not even what's in the story. And no, I'm not going to read the story because that headline, that's the best descriptor, and it only gets worse from there. Suffice to say, multiple people in multiple levels of police agencies went out of their way to find young, attractive, female officers, fresh out of the academy with no training, and handpick them because they're special to work in vice services. And then spend a few years making them go shopping and, try on slutty clothes for them that'll really be good for all those johns that they're gonna get. And then, make them go and buy sex toys and then play with them, so that they can be well versed in this sort of thing, just in case their job ever requires it. No, it all goes downhill from here. And once again, totally just a bad apple, amongst the people who were training the officers, who flagged the officers as, attractive and good, and then the other officers in the actual department, once they got out of training, who then pointed them out to the senior officers, who then purposely went out of their way to put them in a unit where all the other people in the unit were senior and knew exactly what was going on. But don't worry, it was just one bad apple, right? And now I'm going to ask you the same question I ask you every goddamn week when I do this reoccurring segment. So what the hell is going on with the police state? And here's my question. Are they all just bad apples? Are there really that many bad apples? Or is this a pervasive problem? Do we as a country and as a people need to take a much harder look at policing and the police state here in America and the structure and the systems which seemingly oppress and attack whoever they want, whenever they want, while half the country stands on the sidewalk and applauds them and thanks them for keeping them safe, no matter how many people they kill. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet and I am out. Peace.